Okay, so Rome has been, ancient Britain, Roman era Britain has been in the news a bit. So I've got to do a piece on it, haven't I? I've got to. Just to mention, you are in safe hands. I did formally study Roman Britain at undergrad, and since those many moons ago, I've read a great deal more since then. So it's one of my things. This is truly sort of in my wheelhouse.
Haven't you done like about 25 episodes now on Roman history on the website?
All in all, way more than that.
Really?
I did a series that was 21 episodes long, just about the career of Caesar and Pompey, which finished a few weeks ago. But I've done loads. So going back to Epochs 16, anyone who's watching this free on YouTube, if you go on lotuseaters.com and subscribe for as little as £5 a month, you'll be able to see loads of paywalled content, hundreds of hours of paywalled content there. You had your own show, Contemplations, many episodes of that.
171, I think.
Right, and my own one, my history-themed one, Epochs. I'm up to episode 198 now. But even going back to the beginning, near the beginning, loads of them are about Rome. I mean, episode 16 was actually with you.
It was, yeah.
Where we talked about Rome and Britain, or Caesar's first expedition to Britain.
I really enjoyed it.
55 BC.
Real callback. When was this recorded? Just out of mine. Oh, August of 2021. There we go. Vintage Lotus Eaters there.
We'll look visibly younger, or I will anyway.
I probably will as well. I didn't have these crow's feet back then.
And then who's doing the links? Who's going to?
I can do some of these.
So also the very next one, because we didn't talk about it all the first time. Epochs number 17. Keep talking about Britain. When Caligula, Caligula didn't invade. He nearly did, but then Claudius, when Uncle Claudius did finally invade. And then we hear about some of the details in Tacitus's Agricola, the book talking about the Roman occupation of Britain. Next few links.
Oh, I got it. Yep.
Recently, that's part of my aforementioned 21-part series about Caesar when he's in Britain. So I talk about the same thing again, but in even more detail this time.
Correct use of Roman numerals there. I like it.
Yeah. Next one. Even more detail.
Oh. There you go.
Because in Caesar's account of his invasion of Gaul, which is a whole book long, there's a chapter or so in there where he just talks about, and this summer I bounced across the channel to England and did X, Y, Z. Okay. But it wasn't until Claudius, many years later, decades later, truly invaded and sort of conquered the main tribes at Camulodunum, which was later called Colchester. So, okay, so that's sort of the first story. So what's been in the news? What has been in the news recently? If you keep going with the links. So what is that? CBS says that there's been... basically, under a building in the Square Mile in London, or anyone who doesn't know, I'll quickly say, you've got this big, massive metropolis of London. Massive, one of the biggest cities in the world. But within it is a small area that's formerly the City of London. And there's even a smaller bit, the City of Westminster, and they're both subsumed within the wider Greater London metropolitan area. But there's the little bit, the City of London. It's a tiny bit confusing, but anyway. And even within that, there's an area that's quite often called, just colloquially called, the Square Mile, where there's lots and lots of... it's one of the financial districts. There's more than one sort of financial district in London. Sort of Canary Wharf is one now as well. But anyway. But there you've got sort of like the Bank of England and Lloyd's and Stock Exchange and various things. It just so happens that underneath that, the archaeology underneath that area is sort of the heart of Roman-era London. That's where we know that there was a forum, basilica, amphitheatre, parts of the wall, all sorts of stuff. That's really the heart of it all. And of course now it's a really important part of modern London. But every now and again, for whatever reason, we get to sort of dig it up if they're knocking a building down and rebuilding one or something like that, or if they're doing a bit of the rebuilding or a bit of the underground system or something or other. So every now and again it comes up that archaeologists are able to actually dig it up. And so that's what's happened recently. I mean, that's a few days. It's a few days old now. But still. So yeah,
Pretty fresh as far as ancient history goes, isn't it? A few days.
yeah. So the next few, we can just whip through the next few links. Where was that? What news is that talking about?
The New York Times.
The New York Slimes even mentions it. And the next one, BBC, I think it was. Yeah. So, actually, I can read a bit of this. The first few paragraphs I can read. We're told, a discovery underneath the basement of an office block has been described as one of the most important pieces of Roman history unearthed in the city of London, certainly in recent times. Archaeologists have found a substantial piece of the ancient city's first basilica, 2,000-year-old public building where major political, economic and administrative decisions were made. The excavation has so far revealed sections of stone wall that formed the base of the basilica, which would have been 2.5 stories high. The site, which will eventually be open to the public, sheds light on the city's beginnings. You can see there, it's just in the basement of a building. There's like cabinets there.
Yeah. Could you imagine just walking, over that unwittingly and then finally having it unearthed?
Well, that's the great thing, because I'm a sort of London boy, or at least Essex boy, born and bred, and went to uni in London, and then worked in London until I started working here, like nearly 4 years ago. So I'm very much a London person, right? And so and a history nerd. So I'm fascinated by London. I've read multiple books about the history of London all through the Middle Ages. Now, when you walk around London, it's very, very easy for your imagination to capture and link onto medieval London in all sorts of ways. When you see Westminster Abbey or something.
Because there are lots of remnants of that in the city. Well, not lots, but...
It's loads. It's filled with it. It's filled with it. London is like an onion, and there's so many layers to it. So the Abbey is very old, but, something like St Paul's Cathedral. Or you just walk past a building and it's clearly sort of Gothic. Or then you walk down the next street and it's all Georgian era. Right? And on and on and on. But of course, the city itself goes back to even before the Romans. So there was a settlement there on the Thames before the Romans turned up. It wasn't just a complete wilderness and the Romans started it from absolute scratch. But nonetheless, it was the Romans that really turned Londinium from just a settlement on the Thames into the most important town or settlement or city, you might say, in the whole of that Roman province of Britannia. As I say, in the ancient world, you wouldn't really say that Colchester or Camulodunum was the capital. It didn't really work like that. But still, the Romans considered that once they'd captured Camulodunum, at least the southeast of the island was pacified. But they moved the centre, if you like, from Colchester to London, because apart from anything else, just the Thames is a great way for trade.
Well, if you're running it from the continent, right, you want something that has easy access to one of the easier crossing points.
Exactly. And there's a reason why the bit of the City of London and Westminster, why the earliest bridges are there across the Thames, because the area was very marshy. But there's all sorts of reasons why London grew up where it did. So I've always been fascinated by it. Every era of London history I'm fascinated by it, but particularly, of course, the ancient world, the Roman era bit. So when the new bit of archaeology turns up, of course my ears prick up and I have to read about it and hear about what it is. The fact it's part of the basilica, it's probably the earliest basilica as well. There was almost certainly a second, bigger one built a few decades after the first one. Seems like this is the earlier one. The archaeologists will confirm all of this one way or another. So if we click through a few more of the images. Okay, so that's a part of the original Roman wall, which is right by Tower Hill Station.
Yeah, I've never seen that before. Wow.
And if one of the places my elder brother used to live just south of Tower Bridge for years. So in the 90s, whenever I visited him, which was pretty often, I'd get off at Tower Hill and walk across the bridge. And that's right there. I mean, that's a statue of Trajan that's obviously later and been put there deliberately in the 20th century. But still, that wall is original, best part of 2,000-year-old Roman wall.
And it's still standing.
Remarkable, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's quite a tall wall as well to be still standing.
Yeah. If we go, keep going. There is just an aerial view, but there's lots of bits of that wall all around, just dotted through London. If you know where to look, keep going. It's just another image of. It's just things like that just crop up. You can see there's like modern buildings sort of right next to it, and again, it just looks like a bit of a broken down old bit of crap, really. But when you
told me it was like a Victorian furnace. If
yeah,
I didn't know what it was already, I might believe you.
when you're able to sort of use your imagination of what those walls have seen and what they've lived through, right? It sort of beggars belief, really, when you really try and grasp the antiquity of it, and what it represents. So just keep going. Just got loads of pictures to talk about. There's a bit in London near a Moorgate. There's a road in London called London Wall. That's the name of it. And there's a bit of the wall there. Again, just if you know where to look, there's all sorts of archaeology, all sorts of relics and things. So by London Wall, there is the Museum of London. Now, if anyone visits London and doesn't know any better, the curators at the Museum of London won't like me saying this, but the best museum is the British Museum, not the Museum of London. Not that the Museum of London is crap, it's great, I love it. Been there a number of times, but don't think that that's the best preeminent main museum in London, the Museum of London. It's not. Go to the British Museum in Bloomsbury.
It's a whole day out there, isn't
it? Oh, God, endless. It's a cathedral to history in all sorts of ways.
I love going there.
It's my spiritual home, the British Museum. But at the Museum of London, completely different to the British Museum. It's on London Wall. Oh, there's another bit of the Roman wall. That's actually in the Tower of London.
Oh, okay.
So that's sort of the inner courtyard. It's more than a courtyard, but the inner area, inner sanctum inside the Tower of London. There's a bit of the Roman wall there. Just another example of Roman era stuff right there to see, if you know where to look. So if we keep going, in the just stuff like that, just around. So that's inside the Museum of London, where they've got done a nice piece. That is one thing we do well, is we do treat our archaeology quite well compared to other places in the world. Like if you go to Greece or Italy, often, or Turkey or something, quite often, it's just left there, completely open to the elements, and no one's done anything to preserve it or protect it or anything.
It's funny you say that, because I've spoken to lots of people from various European countries, and they say the one thing about the sort of English or the British that makes us more unique than any other trait amongst Europe, not only is our binge drinking, but also our respect and preservation of history. There's no mistake that many of the first antiquarians and archaeologists and academics of that stripe were British.
Yeah. The very concept of sort of modern archaeology, sort of 19th century into the 20th century archaeology, that you treat historical artifacts increasingly with kid gloves. Yeah, that comes from the British and a bit the French and a bit the Germans, but yeah, us really. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's just inside the Museum of London. There's a bit more to show how what lengths we've gone to try and preserve things where we can.
I mean, yeah.
How we treat Stonehenge, for example. There's things with as great antiquity or more throughout the world, all over the world, and it's just sort of left there, open to the elements. Whereas we try and do what we can to preserve these things. If you just keep going now. Oh, there's just a Roman, a mock-up of a Roman room from sort of the 2nd or 3rd century.
Fancier than my flat.
Yeah, it's quite nice, isn't it?
It is, yeah, I'd live there.
Yeah, it's got a better floor than my sort of
uniformly
beige carpet. I've got a bit of lino.
Yeah, my laminate flooring isn't quite the same as that mosaic there. It's beautiful.
Yeah. This is just a model of what they think the Forum and Basilica might have looked like.
Quite impressive, though, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, by the 3rd or 4th century AD, Britain was relatively important to the sort of Roman Empire and economy and things. Also a drain on them. But anyway, it's another story. If you're interested in that stuff, as I mentioned at the beginning, I've got a few hours worth of content of me talking about it and reading quotes from proper historians and all sorts of stuff. So, okay, that's Guildhall. That is, again, not a million miles from from London Wall. It's sort of around the Moorgate, just next to sort of Moorgate, not quite near Liverpool Street. Anyway, and you can see on the floor there that sort of black line going around there. Can you see that?
Oh yeah, I see it.
That's sort of, and right in the middle there, right in the very middle, there's a little plaque, and it says this is where the Roman amphitheatre once stood.
That makes sense.
We'll keep going with the images. Again, it's just sort of Guildhall and the courthouse there. Anyone can walk around there. There's a good view of it.
You can really see it there, can't you?
Yeah, and if you keep going, that was an artist's idea of what it might have looked like. Keep going. And there's underground. There is a little museum thing they've made. Spent quite a lot of money and time and energy on that, and they're sort of the real ruins of it. So yeah, as we started this piece with the stuff that's in the news cycle at the moment, you know, we found a new bit of Roman archaeology in London. There's actually loads. It's peppered with it. It's peppered with it. You can go down there and see it, and it's really cool. Go through the next few images. Yeah, they've sort of mocked up what it might have looked like. Now, to some people, this is not their cup of tea. They're like, oh, it's just a bit of old stone. And to other people, like myself, it's sort of remarkable.
That it's still here, yeah. That it's a sort of, it's like a link to ancient times, isn't it? And you've got to have a bit of respect for it, if not a great deal.
There's this idea that Dan Carlin's talked about it before, where at the end of the original Charlton Heston Planet of the Apes, where he sees that the ruined Statue of Liberty, that in fact eons have passed, and you're just seeing this remnant of a once lost world. Some would say I'm going over the top, it's like too romantic and it's just a bit of stone, get over it. But for me and a lot of people, it is like the remnant of a lost, forgotten world.
Well,
and
the Anglo-Saxons thought
there.
All of the Roman structures were built by giants, didn't they?
Yeah. And it's part of you know, Northwestern European or just European history and heritage. Because it's all very well when you read, say, Tacitus's Agricola or something like that. And it just mentions that the Romans were once here. And it's effectively almost, it could be fiction. It's like, it's just a story. It has no meaning. But then, no, the physical, real world archaeology shows that they really were.
Well, it makes it tangible, doesn't it?
Yeah,
they're not just stories anymore.
Right. Yeah, it really happened. There really was an amphitheatre in sort of the 2nd, 3rd, 4th century AD in the middle of London, where Guildhall now is, where there would have been gladiatorial games and beast fights and all sorts of stuff.
Mm-hmm. I know what this is. This is isn't this underfloor heating?
Yeah, exactly.
They have the same thing in the Roman baths in Bath.
Yeah. You see it all over the place, even in a relatively small villa. Quite often they would have. Well, I think we've got an image or two of that later. Yeah, but there's just another. So there's even more underneath that. There's even more. So one of the big things, going back to this is from the 50s, the 1950s. They found, because a lot of London was sort of bombed out by Mr. Hitler and Mr. Goering, the evil Nazis bombed good old London town, and in the 50s
helped archaeology,
right? Yeah. So again, this is in the middle of London, and archaeologists have decided, and historians have have discovered that it was a temple to Mithras.
Oh yeah.
And I haven't got time now, but there's a lot that could be said about the cult of Mithras, one of the mystery cults, almost certainly from sort of the 3rd century, the 200s AD. No, I haven't got time to talk about Mithras. Okay, let's go on. There's a few pictures, and now there's some of it. That's Queen Victoria Street, I think. Again, right in the middle of the financial district of London today. If you keep going,
good reminder to the bankers that all of their endeavours are going to crumble into dust eventually.
Right? Yeah. Mr. Bloomberg, look upon My works ye mighty and despair. Yeah, so Bloomberg is the Bloomberg space, it's called. They sort of relocated some of it, and they've made this again, built this whole thing around it for touring. I mean, what a remarkable space. And they've recreated that image of Mithras, which would have stood there, almost certainly. I mean, wow, go back one.
Oh.
I just think that's a remarkable.
Be able to see it from the sort of perspective that it was intended as well. Yeah, it's great that they've done that.
Yeah.
I also like the ambience. That's sort of it feels right, doesn't it?
Because it was a mystery religion, a mystery cult. You have to be initiated into the mysteries and all that sort of thing. Yeah, the ambience they've created there, I think, is quite apt. Probably. I mean, probably. We don't know for sure exactly.
It feels right.
Yeah.
Even if it isn't.
I might have put an image or two in of like an artist's impression. Oh, there's just a statue of the classic depiction of Mithras and the bull.
Sacrificing a bull, yeah.
It's just another image of Mithras. Maybe it would have looked something like that, perhaps. All sorts of rites going on. Yeah, keep going. Okay, so there's now moving on from London. If someone gives me the opportunity to talk all about Roman era London or Roman era Britain, I may as well do just a quick whip round of other things that are there. So that's the so-called Colchester Castle, again in what was ancient Camalodunum, and
still quite impressive.
Yeah. Almost certainly Claudius himself visited there. Well, he definitely went to Britain and Camalodunum, but it was almost certainly built at that time. It's been built on since, and there was even I've been there a number of times. I've been there like 10 times in my life or something silly. It's a great place to visit, but again, like the onion of history, there's so much more to it than just the Roman bit. So even in the Civil War, so like the 17th century, it was sort of events went down there. But if I'm going to talk about Roman Britain, you have to mention Colchester. So keep going. Again, Colchester has just got all sorts of just you'll randomly walk around, turn a corner, and there's a bit of...
It's sort of known for it.
2,000-year-old bit of Roman wall, original thing there.
When I think of Colchester, I think of, Roman history. That's sort of synonymous with it these days, isn't it?
Yeah. In the British Museum, if you come to London, the best repository for all things Roman is the British Museum, which is just off near Holborn, between Russell Square, Holborn, and Tottenham Court Road. You'll find it. And
like the tourists normally.
The Greek and Roman collection there is among the best in the world.
You'd probably have to go to the museum. It's great, isn't it?
You'd probably have to go to Italy before you find a better one. It is extremely, extremely good. And in fact, me and Carl once visited the British Museum a couple of years ago now in order to talk about the Assyrian collection there. But while we were there, we recorded a few other bits and bobs just about various other bits. There's go back one. There's a famous head of Augustus. Keep going forward. There's just sort of endless, brilliant artifacts.
I was surprised at how curved that shield was, actually. That's one of the main takeaways of actually seeing it in person.
Deflect arrow.
Interesting symbols in the corner there.
Yep. There's a few shorts. We shouldn't play any, but there's a bit of sort of crocodile skin parade armour, almost certainly a centurion or senior officer's parade armour. It's one of the favourite pieces. I remember being bowled over by that when I was a kid. And the next few links are just from the channel, shorts of the Lotus Eaters, where obviously shorts, but just a few moments of me and Carl looking at some of the best busts that are there. There's some Roman dice. They love dice games. Carl was very interested that they had a D20. They're playing D&D.
Yeah, Romans played D&D, confirmed. There you go.
Ancient Roman D20. Okay, so but the whole of England, or the whole of Britain really, but particularly England, is littered in a good way with Roman ruins. And this is just the wiki page that tells you where there's loads and loads of Roman villas all over the place. It's a great history and heritage that we've got. And so some of the most famous ones, If we keep going,
Sorry, I'm just
yeah,
going
so
through the
many.
whole list to show the scale of it, really.
We're not even halfway down the page. Yeah.
I didn't realise it's quite this extensive, to be honest, because obviously where I grew up, there's hardly any.
Certain places, particularly the southeast, any old person could go out with a metal detector, and you might find some Roman coins. You might.
I know people who found Roman coins metal detecting, actually. Yeah.
Right, yeah. So, okay, keep going forward with the next. One of the most famous is Fishbourne. I think it was probably more than a villa. It might be fair to call it a palace at Fishbourne, which is in Sussex.
Lovely mosaics.
Yeah, the workmanship at Fishbourne is off the charts. It's absolutely wonderful, really. Yeah, that's what they think it may well have looked like.
I would happily live there.
So
even with Roman technology.
It is getting to the level of palatial, isn't it? That's a bit more.
I would call that a palace. I think that's
more than
fair.
merely a villa. Again, probably a better rendering of what it might have looked like. Probably would have looked like.
Incredibly impressive, isn't it?
Chedworth, this place called Chedworth, which is in Gloucestershire, in Cotswolds. And you can see there they've got a version of the underground. If you go back one, those little mushroom things there, that's because there would have been a floor there. And
that's the supports, isn't it? Yeah.
It's the underground heating system once again. And Chedworth is on a much smaller scale than Fishbourne, but nonetheless, it's just sort of plonked there, sitting in the countryside. Mm-hmm. And I've seen a much more modern building there, but in the foreground, sort of Roman.
Call that modern, you know. Well, yeah. Americans, the audience, can't comprehend calling that modern.
It's merely 500 years old. It's modern.
Yeah, it is.
That's what Chedworth may well have looked like.
Still very impressive.
That's Lulling. I've been there. I went there, Lullingston in Kent. I went there not too long ago. I went there about a couple of years ago. And again, it's just a footprint, really, of something that was once there, but still quite extensive.
Feel for the structure of the place, don't you? And all indoors. You're not going to get rained on, at least.
Right? Yeah, that's true. And they've got even there. They've got some mosaics on the floor, which are quite remarkable. If you keep going, you might. I think again. There you go.
Well, yeah.
If you notice, there's some swastika.
Naughty symbols, yeah. German windmills.
But they're square ones. They're not the diamond-shaped ones. So
that's true. It makes
all
the difference.
It makes all the difference. That's what maybe Lullingstone might have looked like in its heyday. And Bath, of course, classic one, brilliant one. Again, can't mention Roman Britain without mentioning Bath.
I remember when I moved to Bath, the very first day I went and brought a book about Roman history, paid my entry, which is not cheap, and sat on a really sunny day next to the baths for hours reading about Roman history, just on the edge. That lovely. Is great. Very much recommend it. The ticket lasts for 24 hours, so you can also go back the following day.
Lovely. I can't think of much better way to spend an afternoon.
Nearby Bath Abbey is very nice as well. Yeah. Not Roman.
No. And the fact that, in this instance, it's something more than just a footprint, something more than just a ruined echo of something that once was. It's still it's all still there, right? It's... Mm-hmm. Just say that. Again, could talk about the Roman baths at Bath for quite a while. There was lots that could be said.
So this looks like Hadrian's Wall, and I imagine you can probably tell us all about why the Romans left.
Right, yeah, I suppose, yeah. I mean, there's the Wall of the Antonines as well, but Hadrian's Wall, again, another fantastic, although not very tall anymore, but a fantastic sort of stamp on the countryside. If you go through, I think I've got 2 or 3 images of Hadrian's Wall. But
imagine that's a form of tower or gatehouse or something.
Yeah, some sort of garrisoned area of it, and it stretches from coast to coast across the borders. That's what it may have looked like in its heyday. So yeah, I mean, by the end of the Roman era, in the very early 5th century, probably the year 410, or Bede, the venerable monk of Jarrow, says it's 409, and Zosimus, Byzantine chronicler, says it was in the year 410. But anyway, in that area is the age of sort of Honorius and Stilicho and Alaric, king of the Goths, Visigoths, invading Italy.
They originally they went on to settle Spain, didn't they? The Visigoths.
Yeah, the Visigoths were all over the place. Yeah,
They also went to North Africa, didn't they?
yeah.
Blimey.
Um,
Get about.
So yeah, at that time, just the empire was, the Western Empire anyway, was just being assailed from sort of all directions. Some sort of massive coalition of Goths and Visigoths.
All Germanic migrations, wasn't it?
Yeah, the Vandals, the Alans, the Swabi, the Macromani, the Alemanni, even Franks, Lombards, early Burgundians, all sorts of people all clubbing together, realising that Rome and the Roman legions are at a particularly low ebb, and in fact we've caught them off guard. Because Alaric tried to invade Italy once and was repulsed by the great Stilicho, but Stilicho himself had been, the last great Roman general, had been ousted and executed. And so Rome was, when Alaric for the second time tried to invade Italy down through the Po Valley, was uncontested, marched straight up to Rome. And so anyway, the emperor around that time, or just before that anyway, Honorius, had sent a letter to the cities in Britannia and said, send back the legions. And they're like, what legions? It's like, all the legions. All of them, every man jack of them, we need in Italy now. And so there's like a letter that was sent. Zosimus says that they sent a letter saying, you must look to your own defences. We need all the manpower back in Italy. Yes, we need it yesterday. Do it, go. So the Roman legions pulled out of Britain, whether it was in 409 or 410. And so, quite literally, the end of an era. Obviously, historians are going to look back on that, and that's a line in the sand sort of moment. And so it ended Roman Britain. But now we're still left with these footprints, these echoes, to my mind, these sort of wonderful pieces of archaeology are still left, and we're still digging them up to this day. And I think as time goes on and we keep rebuilding, because London, not just London, but all of Britain, but particularly London, it's like this onion that will keep being built upon. That's not ever going to stop. Hopefully we'll keep finding more and more very interesting bits of archaeology. So anyway, that's been in the news cycle recently, so it was an opportunity for me to just bang on about the Romans again.
Well, I very much enjoyed it.
All right, thank you.
If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.